So, lack of bladder control, I should say. So the pons has nerve signals that it sends down to your bladder muscle. So the bladder muscle, the bladder itself is made up of what's called the detrusor muscle, and the detrusor muscle has to stretch. It has these stretch receptors. So just see, if you can look close here, my fingers are together. They call this the bladder. As as fluid, urine is actually dropping from the kidney down through the ureter down into the bladder, where the bladder is going to contain that fluid until it stretches to a certain point. Once those stretch receptors in the muscles of the urine bladder stretch, a signal goes right up to the brainstem, to the pons of your brainstem. And the pons says, okay, I got the signal, you're full. So now it sends down a contraction, a muscle contraction signal to make that bladder squeeze out all the fluid, the urine, to let you evacuate that bladder. So when the bladder gets full, stretch, you go, brainstem, pons gets the signal, okay, I hear you down there, bladder, you're full. Let me squeeze, let me send down that squeezing muscle contraction signal. When you want to be able to squeeze, let's say, ketchup out of a ketchup plastic bottle, you squeeze the bottle to get more out. Well, in order for you to get the fluid out of your bladder, it's not just open up a sphincter, which is a muscle controlled by certain nerves, by the way, that come out of your spine, and I've talked about in other videos of interstitial cystitis, which I'll put the links below this video so you can easily click on there and look around at the other information, unique information that can change your life for you, that I put up on my YouTube channel. But it's not just about opening up a muscle here to let the bladder release. It's a contraction that happens to the bladder to squeeze out the fluid in there. So when you feel that you are full in the bladder, we've all had this, where we get to the bathroom, it's just like, when you're letting it out. Well, the pons of your brainstem, again, got the signal, stretch, boom, it sends a reflex action down to the bladder to squeeze out the fluid. Now, what happens when the pons of your brainstem is infected? What happens when the pons of your brainstem has toxins? And it can easily get into your brainstem. Let me show you a picture here real quick of the jaw. See this picture on my left? This is a skeletal image, a drawing. Shows that in every tooth there's blood vessels, and even in the sinus, you'll notice it up below the eye part of this skeletal drawing. You can see underneath there's blood vessels in the face, underneath the eye. In the sinuses, we have blood vessels. We have blood vessels in our teeth that go along the jawbone on the top and the bottom, and they travel across the other arteries that are here in the jaw, that travel to the carotid artery, that travel down in the body to the aorta, which has branches that go into the back of the neck called your vertebral arteries. And the vertebral arteries also have a branch called a basilar artery that goes right into your brainstem. Now the pons of the brainstem can easily have an infection because infected sinuses can travel, the infection can travel through a blood vessel that goes right to the brainstem, through blood vessels. Infection from the jaw can go right through the blood vessels that get up into the brainstem to infect the pons. Mercury fillings in teeth called silver fillings or other kinds of toxic substances that are here can easily, there's been recordings on various cameras that the naked eye doesn't see, that these poisons can travel right into the brain, into the brainstem, diseasing the pons of the brainstem in this case for this discussion, as well as other parts of the brain and brainstem and spinal cord can get infected and toxic. But that pons, when it gets infected, what's it going to do? It can actually send out hyperactive signals, even without the bladder full, hyperactive contraction signals. So there are people who tell me, Dr. Herman, I feel like urgency, frequency. I've got to go to the bathroom every 20 minutes or every hour because I just feel this pain, this down-bearing pain, this cramping that's going on in my bladder. They don't call it cramping or pain, discomfort.